In this recording, I'd like to kind of delve into what we've been experiencing and how we've been understanding fifth dimensional relationships. And first of all, I think it's important that we define that.
All right, I'll define fifth dimensional in a way that a guide approached me in a dream about fifth dimension. So I actually, it wasn't even a dream state. It was more of a vision state. I was daydreaming. I was laying in bed. I was kind of dozing in and out, and suddenly I had this vision of a guide. He came right up to me, and he started talking. And he said,
That's pretty direct.
It was really direct. It was kind of like an, oh, all right, energy. I'll talk to you. Hold on. And so he comes over to me, and he starts describing what the fifth dimension was. And he described it in a way that was very interesting. He said, imagine 2D, as in length and width, but no depth, no height. 2D beings, and they navigate their reality on a flat surface, a flat plane. And suddenly, they are introduced to a new kind of area, a 3D area, so length, width, and depth. The idea of navigating in strictly a 2D plane becomes more nonsensical because it becomes very limiting. They have now 3 dimensions to navigate in, so they begin to choose their reality differently. They begin to navigate on multiple planes instead of just one 2D plane. And in the same concept, as you begin to play with your reality in a state of neutrality, you reach a fifth dimensional state, which is you kind of disengage from the status quo, and you start to recognize you have choice in a way that is another type of dimension rather than simply linearly.
How would that be different from fourth dimension?
So fourth dimension, there are many ways to define dimensions. I've heard different teachers define it differently. I'm just going to say...
How about density? Would fourth density and fifth density be more appropriate? Because I know the fourth dimension has to do with time.
Right. So let's stick with dimensions. We can probably play with density a little later, but let's stick with one thing here. Okay. So third dimension is very strict, very dense. You are very polarized, good, bad, right, wrong. That locks you into a set of choices that are mostly reactions. You're mostly in reaction to your reality. The fourth dimension, having to do with time, is more about being in present time. It's where so we're all kind of third, fourth dimension simultaneously. So you bring in present time, and you have the element of pondering something without kind of leaning into it. You have this concept of present time where you can choose, I'd like spaghetti or I'd like something else for dinner. You have the choice. You're not in reaction to in the third dimension. So most people exist to some degree in the third and fourth dimension. The fifth dimension is more of that neutrality. You bring more of it into such a degree that you begin to recognize the simultaneous nature of existence. And that's the fifth dimension. And that looks in a space-time framework like very spontaneous things occurring in your reality. And yet there's an order to the spontaneity. There's a way of navigating a spontaneous reality that cannot be controlled by an ego, and that itself becomes a very freeing aspect. So in the third dimension, fourth dimension, you're still pondering with an ego. You're still trying to make decisions and make things happen, and you got to go to this place every day called work, and you're involved with a lot of reactions all the time. But as you begin to play in fourth dimension, present time more, and observe your neutral state, you then have more of an ability to discern your reality, and that leads into the fifth dimension, where you get to choose timelines by engaging them very consciously in a space-time framework, which is the fifth dimension. So now we get into relationships. It's kind of a long explanation for this, but relationships in the fifth dimension. As you start to play with timelines in a space-time framework, you sense that your reality is its own construct that you're creating in every moment. That means each and every person that comes into your awareness, you're creating with them in some way, by agreement with them. And you start to realize that each person is their own opportunity to co-create in a new and fun way. And anyway, they spontaneously happen to run into you in your reality. That's the spontaneity. And each person holds a key, a metaphorical key, if you want to use that kind of term, to unlock something that you can discover about yourself, and vice versa with them. So you recognize the simultaneous aspects of timelines, and you choose to co-create with them to unlock more of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, you had one of my old friends contact you recently,
Mm-hmm.
and he's male and you're female, and from a third dimensional standpoint, the only real thing you can do is react. So in a traditional, marriage, if some guy comes up and starts chatting with your wife, you're going to get defensive. Why are you... That's my wife. You're my friend. You're not her friend. What are you doing? It's a very reactionary state. You automatically assume a negative. But what I'm learning with fifth dimensional relationships is there's a reason he popped into your reality. And that reason has to be positive, because there's no real... when you get good at being in a neutral state, the polarity of that begins to be neutralized, and then the people that pop into your reality are then either going to be somewhat neutral
Or helping you grow.
or helping you grow, depending on the level of co-creation that's occurring.
And helping you grow can be neutral in and of itself.
Right. And exciting.
Yes, it is exciting.
And that's a very different kind of flip.
It is. And what I am currently learning from that is discernment, and discerning in how I deliver information to people. Because you're very good at delivering information, at being a guide, at being guidance. You're very good at that, and I really like that, and I appreciate that of you. Thank you.
Of course.
And I know you enjoy it, which is even more enjoyable for me. And for me, I am learning to discern the guidance that I have and how it comes through me in a way that can actually be beneficial to people, and not have it go right over their heads all the time.
Right.
And not have them completely zone out. So this is actually very exciting for me, because here I have an individual who popped up in my reality, and I get to learn this with that individual, because he very clearly lets me know when I'm not making sense to him.
Right.
Which is kind of fun, because I learned from it.
Yeah. So when each person in your reality begins to be in the very least, just a neutral prop.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to discuss people in that way, because people are so used to identifying them as separate.
Or as an attachment.
Or as an attachment, as a need, as
something you need to get some sort of a specific reflection from, for it to be valid for you in your reality. And unless you get that reflection from them, something's bad.
Yeah.
So you're missing something. There's a lack. So there is no attachment in this sort of a relationship. It's an acknowledgement that people will come and go into your reality as required for your learning lessons.
And that's all it is.
And that's literally all it is.
There's no attachment to anything different, so it can't be negative. Even if someone's intention initially toward you is negative.
It doesn't matter, because your intention is you, and you're observing it from a point of neutrality, and you're being, and that's all there is.
Right. And that's something very challenging. In fact, it's basically impossible from a third dimensional, fourth dimensional
standpoint. It doesn't
standpoint.
make sense from a third dimensional standpoint.
Right.
And in fact, there have been numerous reflections of people in 3D when they look at, and I'm going to use this very loosely, I'm not entirely sure how certain people are in their realities, but I get the images of tabloids. If a celebrity hangs out with another celebrity, everyone's like, oh my God, what does this mean about this couple and that couple, and how does it impact their relationships? It doesn't.
Right.
If you can just be, you're just being, and that's it. Nothing bad is happening.
To expand on that, in the fifth dimensional setting, each person that you attract to you very fluidly in every single moment, whether in your grocery store, in your home, at a church, no matter where you are, each person that actually begins to interact with you holds some sort of reflection for you as a key, as a further expansion.
Yes.
And you can be so present with them that you enjoy that interaction. And then you move on to the next present time moment with another person and enjoy that interaction so fully. And then you move to the next scenario and you do this all day long. And to others in a different mindset, in a very strict polarity mindset, that looks like what, like you said, the tabloid scenario. Like, oh my gosh, that they're a couple and that person was hanging out with that celebrity and this is bad. But when you're so present in a fifth dimensional mindset with each and every person that pops into your reality, you're enjoying yourself that much that there's no concept, there's not even a thought of a threat or a bad intention or anything like that, because you're just being that present. That's a fifth dimensional standpoint on relationships.
And it goes with anyone, even the most unexpected people. There's a woman in my office space, and she's just very, 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 very out of alignment with a lot of things in her life, and that just totally became neutralized, and she's a human being, and I was able to enjoy myself fully with her the other day. I had a great time as she was listening to like hate speeches and releasing about her past right next to me. I was thoroughly enjoying myself, and I felt a sense of enjoyment from her. Even though she was in this very dense space, I still felt like it wasn't a how do you call it, a sticky connection? But it was a feeling of ease within me to really, it was like I loved her in that moment. I loved her.
Yes.
And I don't know how else to describe that. I loved her for everything that she was, everything that she was doing in that moment. It was okay. It was perfect. And that's just it.
And that comes into the last bit that I feel I can talk about on fifth dimensional relationships, is when you begin to see what is with every single person in front of you, the neutrality state becomes the what is state, and you begin to actually understand fully where each person is, and you begin to love them for who they actually are. Not your ideas, not their past history, not whatever they're spouting off, but you begin to recognize truly who they are in that moment, and you begin to love them. That elevates them in their realities just as much to align to that level of love back. It's a choice, but that's elevating people to their truest, highest extent of vibration possible.
That's lovely. Thank you. I think we covered a lot.
I would say so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.